Hi guys! So, as some of you may know, I'm doing a collab this month with Jacob from BlankSpaceDolls. I'm so excited to finally be able to show you what we did. A few months ago, we talked about what we might like to do as a collab and settled on a theme of flowers. We both chose a flower to base our girls off of. He chose a sunflower and I chose a blue dahlia. Dahlia flowers come in a wide range of colors, but I really wanted to do a sort of a rare blue variety because I thought the stark contrast of a navy against white would look very striking, and also blue is one of my favorite colors. While I was choosing a doll base for this project, I immediately thought to use a Cleo Denial, since while Jacob and I were talking, he mentioned that he really loves darker skin tones on dolls, and I actually haven't worked with a Cleo since my very first face-up back in October. I also wanted to use her for her more angular face, since Jacob's style is more couture, and I want to emulate a little of that in my style. I use 100% acetone to remove the factory paint, and I've already cut her hair off close to the scalp. Boil some water and dunk your doll's head in for about 30 seconds until her head becomes nice and squishy. Then tug her head off of the neck peg. Next, I rub down the inside of her head with a chopstick to pull out chains of glue and then yank those glue chunks out through her neck hole with a pair of needle nose pliers that I've liberated from my dad's toolbox. Sometimes when Monster High dolls have bangs, there's a rip in the doll's head where the thicker rooted hair went in. I've seen some customizers sew this up, but honestly, I'm too lazy to try and deal with that, so I usually just liberate some of my dad's super glue and glue the hole shut. You can't reroute through this part, so I end up moving the part to be a side part now, and I kind of prefer that look anyway, so it's not a big deal to me. But if you want to keep the bangs in the middle, in the front of the head, then go for the sewing method rather than the gluing one. The way I like to set up my blushing colors is with this little palette. I get a bobby pin and scrape off some of the chalk into the little pots. I usually prepare a blush, a contour, a highlighter, a brow color, a lip, and then 3 or 4 more colors if I'm doing eyeshadow. I found the more colors you blush with, the more lifelike you can make the skin look. And someone asked me on Gia Grimwood's video how I do my blushing. I approach it very much like a makeup tutorial, so I contour on the cheeks and jawline, blush the temple, nose, and forehead, and then a little color on the lips, seal all that, and then come back to do the brows and eyeshadow on a different layer. This time I'm using a medium brown pencil to sketch out where I want the eyes to go. Usually I'd use a much lighter pencil for this, but since I'm going for a dark, dramatic, smoky eye, I needed a darker pencil to be able to see my sketch lines. I'm also filling in the brows much sooner than usual. Some of my Instagram followers will recognize this. This is a General's chalk pencil that Jacob always uses for his eye whites. We swapped a box with craft supplies a little while ago, and he sent me one of these pencils, and y'all, stop what you're doing, go out and grab one of these pencils. It is an absolute game changer. I usually layer up the whites of the eyes over and over again, and they stubbornly remain dingy on most of my dolls till I get irritated and use paint. But with this pencil, just the first layer went on almost completely opaque. It was really a lifesaver since I wanted to make light, icy gray eyes, and I'm not sure if that would have been possible without paints and without this pencil. I'm in utter love. I'm actually planning on getting more of these pencils in other colors because they're so good for adding highlights onto the eyes with. So thank you, Jacob, for sending this to me. Okay, enough gushing, back to the doll. Off camera, I rooted this doll with London Fog from Doll Hair Planet. I'll put a link to that in the description box. And then wrapped the hair in a piece of scrap fabric to protect it. I wanted to give this girl icy gray eyes to match her hair, so I start with a light gray base and use just a little line of slate blue on the edges of the iris to give them depth and a little color. This is also where that chalk pencil really came in handy, because I was able to add white highlights onto the very bottom of the iris. The doll had a tiny black dot on her face that didn't come off with the acetone, so I just made it into a freckle. I've actually had that happen a lot lately, where there seems to be something in the plastic that just refuses to be wiped off. Has anyone else had that problem? I went through my normal routine of coloring in the eyes and flicking in the hairs on the brows. She got some cat eye eyeliner that sort of disappeared into the smoky eye, but that's fine. I didn't run into any issues until I hit my very last layer and I went to give her a final seal with MSC, and that's when my brand new can of Mr. Super Clear spat all over her face and coated her with this awful fine white fuzz. I honestly have no idea what happened. The humidity wasn't bad, the temperature was the same it had been all day. The only thing I can think of is maybe I didn't shake it enough since I had just opened the new can, but it utterly ruined the face. I'm not sure if there is a way to fix this, maybe if you wipe it off quickly enough after spraying it, but honestly, I was having a bad art day that day anyway, and I wasn't a fan of how the face was turning out. So I decided to wipe her face, come back the next day, and try again off camera. This ended up being really good since the next day I think I did a much better job on her face, and I like the second face up much better. So even though at the time I was very upset, it all worked out in the end. Once she's all finished, I boil wash her hair to tame the poof. Finally on to the outfit. I start by tracing out the shape that I want onto a piece of paper with a doll on top to gauge the size. This is another time where I sort of wish the bottom of the skirt was more flared. I cut out that pattern and then cut it out in fabric and try it on the doll to make sure that it fits. Then I hand sew it all up. I wanted a gradient from white down to navy to emulate the petals of a dahlia, so I prepared a dye with Rit Dye More. For the bottom of this skirt, I'm actually using a length of tassel that I got from the curtain section of Joann Fabric. I wanted something that would give the bottom of this skirt a lot of texture and drama, and honestly I love the way that it turned out. It's pretty simple to do. I just wrapped it around her legs, pinned it in place so that it would overlap, and then sewed it down. For the top of the skirt, I wanted a really intricate look, like it had been embroidered. So I found a gorgeous piece of fabric in Joann Fabric's wedding line with all these flowers and pearls on it. I'm super excited to use it. At first I tried sewing it down on the skirt, but that looks really bad, so in the end I just glued it for a more seamless look. And to cover the top, I made a simple belt and glued that on. So about the top. One of the first outfits that I made when I started customizing dolls was this cute little yukata outfit. It was the first pattern I'd ever tried to make on this scale, and I was just following a YouTube tutorial for a human-sized kimono, and I'm sure you can see all the issues with it. It's a little too small, and a little too short, and the hemline is a little messier than I'd prefer, so that's why I've never really shown it before. I really need to remake a yukata with this fabric, since I have a ton of it left and I think it would be super cute. But I thought that I could use the pattern to make a kimono-inspired top to go with this dress. A lot of trial and effort went into this, and honestly, this is the point when my whole image of this doll began to change. At this point, I hadn't done the face-up for the doll yet, and I originally had a different flower in mind, specifically a navy and white anemone flower, which can grow in Japan. I was going to make this doll a Japanese woman, so a kimono-inspired top made sense. But there's a problem. The way the top and bottom of this dress went together, I ended up really disliking. There are a few problems. Firstly, the skirt was way too loose, and paired with the loose top, it had the overall effect of making the dress very matronly and ill-fitting. And yeah, it just wasn't working at all. So I scrapped the top completely. Jacob helped me out a lot with a new one, and with his advice, I came up with a different, separate top. The new top has a flowy look that made the outfit, overall, look more Mexican-inspired. So at this point, I changed the flower from an anemone to a dahlia, which is actually the official flower of Mexico. I should note that since I usually make the outfit for a doll before I do the face-up, I was able to change her features from Asian to Mexican, which is not something I would have tried to do if her face had already been finished. I also tightened the skirt up so it's actually sewn onto her legs now. So with a few last-minute touches, she's finally complete. Her name is Dahlia Delagado. There were a lot of ups and downs with this doll, between the first face-up being ruined and the second face-up coming out so nicely, and the first dress top not working out, and the overall design change. But I do think she came out really beautifully. I'm super happy with her. She's definitely more couture than cute, which is exactly what I was going for. And of course, here's Jacob's doll, Sunny Mae. She came out so adorable. I'm in love with her hair and her cute little crop top. She's certainly ready for spring. Make sure you give his video a watch. I'll put a link in the description box below. And a big thank you to BlankSpaceDolls for doing this collab with me. It was so much fun to work with you, Jacob. If you like these 2 spring flowers, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more doll customs. I come out with a new video every other Thursday. You can follow me on Instagram for more behind the scenes stuff and sneak peeks. Thank you so much for watching, and bye for now!